Looking for.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering England defeating Netherlands 2-1 in the semifinal. We'll talk about Gregg Berhalter getting fired after the Copa America failure. We'll talk about Colombia hanging on with 10 men to defeat Uruguay in the Copa America final. We'll talk about Didier Deschamps staying on as France manager after Euro 2024 semifinal disappointment. And make sure you stick around for the end of the show, where I'll be giving you my thoughts on some of the top headlines going on in the soccer world. Before we start off, I'd like to ask that you like and follow the show. Also, we get a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show, so to ensure that your questions get read on the air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net with your questions. This puts your question at the top of the list so that I can see it, and also really helps grow the show. So again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. We have to start off with England defeating Netherlands 2-1 to clinch a spot in the final. They have somehow managed to reach the final, despite all the negativity surrounding them on this show, on many different shows that's been covering the tournament, despite all the negativity around this team in terms of how they've been performing, their style of play, and all that. They have found their way into the final after defeating the Netherlands 2-1, a come-from-behind victory after Xavi Simons scored a wonder goal to give the Dutch the lead early in the game, the earliest goal in a game in a Euro semifinal since I believe Alan Shearer scored the 96 Euros against Germany. England ended up losing that game. But it's different in this semifinal as Xavi Simons gives the Dutch early, and England end up capitalizing on an opportunity in the 18th minute penalty, controversial penalty, but given with the VAR. Harry Kane slots it home, and then in the 90th minute, the two substitutes combine Cole Palmer to Ollie Watkins for a stoppage time winner that sends England to the European Championship final, where they'll be taking on Spain, the best team of this tournament. Wow. Now, regarding this game, you look at the stats. 9 shots for England to 7 for the Netherlands. 5 shots on target for England to 2 shots on target for Netherlands. 59% possession to 41% possession for the Netherlands. Obviously, from the look of the stats, England looked like the team that were on the front foot, especially with the possession stats. But to be honest, it's a little bit more even. I thought England overall were maybe a little bit better, but I thought it was a pretty even game. I thought in that first half, the Dutch started off strongly. They had an opportunity early on with Daniel Malen playing through England press. Eventually, they take advantage after winning the ball up high on Declan Rice, losing it, Xavi Simons scoring the goal. Then England going down 1-0. They turn it on. They apply some pressure. They really dominate that rest of that first half. Honestly, they did get the penalty in that period, a controversial penalty. Look, in my opinion, I think Harry Kane kind of creates the contact, in my opinion. I don't think it is a reckless tackle at all. I think the Dutch player was making a play on the ball, and Harry Kane's follow-through catches Dumfries. I do not think Dumfries' leg or challenge, or whatever you want to call it, was in Harry Kane's space. I think Harry Kane's follow-through and the amount of power he was trying to generate on the shot created the contact, in my opinion. And by the way, the ball was released too. The contact came after the ball was released. Now obviously, even if the ball is released, there could still be a foul. You know, the follow-through still matters. But it's Harry Kane's follow-through. The contact comes after the space of where Harry Kane releases the ball. It's not where Harry Kane releases the ball. It's the contact that Dumfries hits Harry Kane is ahead of the space of where Harry Kane initially hits the ball. In my opinion, it should not be. That should not be a penalty. Um, I think Harry Kane creates the contact. Um, and you don't see this called, by the way. You don't see these sort of plays called. I've seen so many countless times, and let's say it was I've seen so many countless times where a player gets tackled in the box way after he released the shot, and nobody, bats an eye about it. We don't see this happening. How many times have you seen someone come in for a last ditch slide tackle, doesn't come in anywhere near in time, the shot gets off, and he ends up tripping the attacker? I see that happen so many times, but nobody calls it. In this day and moment, you want to call it, it's just very odd, and it's very frustrating for a Dutch player, for a Dutch fan, and it's extremely harsh that VAR came in and make that decision. Really, really harsh. But at the end of the day, England were able to take advantage of that opportunity. They get the penalty down, and England, Phil Foden had a few opportunities himself, striking the post, forcing a save, and England, they really were on the front foot. They were really controlling possession. But then in that second half, England were the team that was, that was a little lackluster. Both teams, honestly, it was a poor second half, honestly. Both teams were pretty lackluster. But, besides a few individual moments, England didn't have no sustained success in that second half in terms of attacking the Dutch goal. And, besides an individual moment of magic that occurred, I did not really see an England winner coming for because there was no sustained pressure. There was no chances created. In fact, I think Dutch probably had the best opportunities with a few set-piece opportunities. They had one that was saved by Pickford, another one with two players back post. John Stones gets a last ditch touch in there, or there's multiple Dutch players that can make a play on the ball on that back post. And apart from those set piece opportunities, both teams really played a really lackluster second half, and it seemed like both teams were kind of satisfied with going to extra time. But a little bit of quality off the bench, and it's interesting because the first game, I think it was the Denmark game or so. Ollie Watkins is the one that Gareth Southgate has brought on upon the bench. And then if you look at what he did against Slovakia and Switzerland, it's been Ivan Toney that's gotten the odd to replace Harry Kane later on the game. So it's interesting him going back to Ollie Watkins here, but Ollie Watkins ended up, and it was an absolutely amazing goal. And he's done what he's done at Aston Villa all season, because of what he's done all season. He scored goals, and he's led them on to the top 4 campaign. He's been a brilliant player for Aston Villa. His verticality, his ability to run in behind. Harry Kane has not been able to do that all tournament because that is not Harry Kane's game. Hence, Harry Kane has had a very poor tournament. And Ollie Watkins with the few, because keep in mind also against in the Denmark game, he had an opportunity similar, making the run in behind, couldn't get it to go, but he provides that. He's a threat. He's a threat that Harry Kane has not been whatsoever. So we'll probably talk about this a little bit later tomorrow, but I think he has a real shot to be in that 11 for the final, because Harry Kane has not been at it. Now there is no way Gareth Southgate makes that sort of decision, but it's something to be worth talking about at least. I thought England, yes, this was by far their most impressive display that they've had at these European Championships, no doubt about it, in my opinion. And that is a very good sign, because you want to be improving as the tournament went on. You don't want to be you don't want to be becoming worse. But there's still another level that they want to reach if they would even like to compete with Spain, because what we saw in that second half was not good enough from England. It was not good enough. Um, and at the end of the day, you know, despite having long stretches of this tournament not being good enough, England find themselves one game away from winning a European Championship. And by far, yes, by far, this will be their biggest test. But for them to find themselves one game away from winning a European Championship, wow. I mean, wow. This is the same team that was seconds away from getting knocked out by Slovakia in the round of 16. Seconds away. And now they find themselves a game away from winning the European Championship. For me, it's unbelievable, unfathomable what they have accomplished. Yes, on the easier side, but the easier side almost got them in the round of 16. I really cannot believe it at all. Yeah, I'm really at a loss for words amongst this England team. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in depth tomorrow, the journeys, both Team England and Spain respective journeys, but I'm really at a loss for words. Can't believe it. As far as the Netherlands, it was a good run for them. I think they'll be very disappointed in the way that it ended, but I think it's a good run for them. I think they've shown progression. You know, this was a team that didn't qualify for the 2018 World Cup, that didn't qualify for 2016 European Championships. So, you know, they also, I believe, they got eliminated in the group stages of the 2012 Euros. So besides the 2014 World Cup, have had a very lackluster run of performances at major international tournaments, or if they even got there. And now they put themselves in a position where they've reached the quarterfinals and the last European Championship, the last World Cup, and now they go on a semifinal run. I think it sets a building block for them. They'll bring in the likes of Frenkie de Jong back in. There is some young and up-and-coming talent in this Dutch ranks. We saw what Xavi Simons was able to do today. Now they just need those 2 or 3 players to take that superstar leap. Whether Cody Gakpo could do that on the club level, Frenkie de Jong, him coming back in. I think Netherlands find themselves in a good position to really get back at the top of international football hierarchy. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to Gregg Berhalter getting fired after that Copa America failure.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we reacted to England defeating Netherlands 2-1 to clinch a spot in the final. We move on to react to Gregg Berhalter. He has been fired after the Copa America failure, in which they failed to get out of a group that comprised of Uruguay, Bolivia, and Panama. After the major downfall to this team is when they lost to Panama after going down a man early. They lost to them 2-1. They also went on to lose to Uruguay in the finale group stage game. which sees them get eliminated in the group stages of the Copa America. And yeah, that was the final straw for Gregg Berhalter, as the people finally rise, and it's over for him. He has been fired, and yeah, I have to say it's absolutely deserved. It's absolutely deserved. He didn't deserve to keep the job after the World Cup last campaign, and it was a farce that he ended up getting the job back again. And yeah, if he was able to retain his job despite what happened, despite their poor performance at this Copa America, it would have been an absolute disgrace. So yeah, I think it's but it's time. It really is. It's time. He's been a farce. It's been a joke. There has been no sort of progression since he was rehired post the 2022 World Cup. At the same time, there's what's the word? There's been a thought amongst us US soccer fans that even before that he really was out of depth. There's been a lot of us that's been calling for his head since 2019-20. Like that's how little we think of him in terms of his tactical in-game flexibility, his squad selections, especially earlier on. Oh my goodness, his squad selection, his tactical flexibility in-game to adjust. Yeah, it's time. Look, there has been no performance, no result that we look at and was like, this is the coming out party for Gregg Berhalter. Yes, beating Mexico is nice, but it is the worst Mexican national team that I have ever seen in my lifetime. And besides that, he has not accomplished anything in terms of winning a game that we're not supposed to win. Everything else that he's done has been expected. It's been expected. And beating Mexico at this day and age where Mexico is right now is also expected. There has been no sort of signature win, or whatever you want to call it, signature win or next step, or, coming out of the closet. There's none of that. It's all been straight putrid, lackluster performances in huge games. You look at what we did in the 2022 World Cup, drawing against Wales. Yes, a good result in getting a point against England, and then squeaking past Iran just to lose to the first decent team we played in the knockout stages. This Copa America, beating Bolivia, yes. Okay, look, you put your hand down, the 10-man red card, all that big issue with Panama. Okay, but then, a good real test for Berhalter in this Uruguay game, and we fail again. Against Colombia, we failed. We played Germany in a friendly game, a Germany team that has been reeling up to that point. Yes, they turned it on later on, but at that point in age, they were a reeling national team, and they ended up beating us. They came here and beat us after struggling and not beating Mexico. Germany did. It's in that same window. He has not been good enough. He has not been a good enough manager. His the way he didn't play Giovanni Reina in Wales. I can go on with the mistakes that he's made. Ricardo Pepi saved his job in the 2022 World Cup qualifying campaign, and he went on to not even bring him onto the squad later on, forgetting the fact that and then ended up playing I'm forgetting his name, Jesus Ferreira, in that game against the Netherlands where he was an absolute disgrace in the first half. And then he brought on Giovanni Reina in the second half as a false nine and playing him in a position that he hasn't played at all ever for the USMNT setup. It's just some of the choices that this guy has made. He's tactically inept. There is no style of play that we see from game in, game out, that we see as a philosophy, like this is the way we want to play. We hear a lot of talk from Gregg Berhalter, oh, we want to do this, oh, we want to do that, oh, we want to do this. But I never saw a style of play that was kind of the identity of this team. We had no real identity at all. We had players that performed worse for the U.S. compared to what they did for their clubs. We had multiple players in that we did not perform to the level. In terms of World Cup qualifying, it was the same as previous. You know, we take care of the games that we needed to take care of at home, and then we go on the road and we look completely woeful. He didn't create a team of mentally tough players. Yes, sometimes it's you either born or not born with, mental toughness, but there is a way that you can adopt that amongst a team. And in terms of having that gritty mentality, and this team did not have it under Gregg Berhalter. It did not. He was not good enough. There's no two ways about it. He was not good enough. He wasn't a manager that made us better than the sum of their parts, like other brilliant managers did. And he also had a sense of pragmatism at certain times too. We had an opportunity against England, set piece opportunity to find at the end to win the game, to put in a ball in the box, and he decides, oh, let's just go and kick it into the corner and run out the clock in a game that was 0-0 in a tournament that we only had 1 point in up to that point. For me, it's just ridiculous. It really is. It's ridiculous how he kept his job to this point. Matt Crocker, Cindy Parlow, think the people that made the decision to retain him have a price to pay in this as well. They should not be free consequences. I saw Matt Crocker's comments regarding the situation, but he has a price to pay because he came in to take the U.S. men's national team to the next level, and all he's done and came in is keep us at the same level or made us even worse, honestly. Matt Crocker did come out with a statement saying, I want to thank Gregg for his hard work and dedication to U.S. soccer and our men's national team. No, that was Sydney Cohn, actually. Cindy Cohn came out and said that. She also said, we are now focused on working with our sporting director, Matt Crocker, and leveraging his experience at the highest levels of the sport to ensure we find the right person to lead the USMNT into a new era of on-field success. The highest level of sports, according to her. Is Southampton the highest level of sport? Southampton? Really? Is that the highest level of sport? This is a club that never played Champions League football whenever it was under Matt Crocker. This is a club that consistently finished within the bottom 10. They're in that range. In fact, they were relegated. I don't know if that was under Matt Crocker, but this is not some team that's, at the top of the world amongst the club football scene, so I don't understand that. But Gregg Berhalter, he also came out with a statement saying, the Copa America result is extremely disappointing, and I take full responsibility for our performance. Our approach and process was always focused on the 2026 World Cup, and I remain confident that the group will be one of the great stories in 2026. Matt Crocker, he will be the lead of the search for Berhalter's replacement, and he has already started the process, actually. He came out saying the U.S. soccer is committed to doing what is necessary to ensure our success on the pitch, and we are dedicated to fostering a culture that leads to winning. Our immediate focus on finding a coach who can maximize our potential as we continue to prepare for the 2026 World Cup, and we have already begun our search process. Man, yeah, whether or not I have faith in Matt Crocker to get it done, no, but this could be an easy decision depending on, whether or not certain managers are willing to take it on. Are they? No. But look, I'm going to make it rather simple for y'all. Absolute dream hire will be Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp. Was that possible? Probably not. That would be the absolute dream. Now, if you're looking from an MLS perspective, I think Wilfred Nancy. That would be a very, very good hire. I think Jim Curtin could also be a decent hire as well, with an MLS perspective, or an American perspective. If you want a dream hire that's actually like realistic that we could go out and get, Hervé Renard. Right now, I believe he's the coach of the French women's national team, which is. But this is a Hervé Renard that won a AFCON with Angola, not with Angola, with Zambia, and he's done more with less, and he has this high pressing sort of system that's been successful at major international tournaments. So they have options. They do have options. But let's be real, Jurgen Klopp is not possible. But the rest, I think this team does have some legitimate options. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to Colombia hanging on with 10 men to defeat Uruguay to move on to the Copa America final.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we reacted to Gregg Berhalter getting fired after the Copa America failure. We move on to react to Colombia. They hang on with 10 men to defeat Uruguay to reach the Copa America final. It's an amazing game. Wow, what an amazing game. In my opinion, probably the best game to watch at this tournament. A lot of things happen in this game. Physical, aggressive as always. A lot of tension, especially post-game. We'll talk about the scenes that we saw from that a little bit later. But Colombia move on after a first half goal from Jefferson Lerma. They hang on despite playing most of the game, majority of the game with the red card, with playing a little bit, a few stoppage time minutes in the first half, and the entirety of the second half with a red card, with the 10 men Colombia did after Munoz got a second yellow in the 45th minute, and despite that, Colombia go out, Uruguay go out. What a massive missed opportunity for Uruguay, having all that time playing with 10 men, and also the opportunities that they had early in the game through Darwin Nunez, and then playing the whole second half with against 10 men and not being able to get that goal, to at least one goal to push it to penalties. Massive missed opportunity for Uruguay. This is a game that they'll think about for a very long time, because everything opened up for them, despite the suffering that they did against Brazil, and how they came in a little bit hampered with the fact that they had a way more difficult quarterfinal compared to Colombia, and they had to play so physical, aggressive, and all that, and really really died on the pitch against Brazil, while Colombia had a very smooth affair where they got to rest players. And on top of that, Uruguay had some missing players in this. But despite that, when Colombia go down to 10 men, that completely goes away. All the advantage goes to Uruguay, and Uruguay just couldn't take advantage of it. Massive missed opportunity for them. Darwin Núñez, look, at first, Darwin Núñez, I always had a soft spot for him. What he did at Benfica the year before he made that transfer to Liverpool was absolutely sensational. Ridiculous amount of goals. And it just seemed like that year, every time he created, he had a moment of magic in terms of being able to create a chance for himself. He took advantage of it. He was clinical. And since he made that move, he has completely lost that clinical touch. He has had so many opportunities in which he gets nowhere, in which he just doesn't take advantage of. It's kind of like the Timo Werner sort of effect. I think Darwin Núñez has just more quality than Timo Werner and can get into dangerous areas and create more opportunities for himself than Timo Werner can. But in terms of Darwin Núñez being clinical, he's just not been clinical enough. And we'll get to the point now where we're wondering, will it ever come? Will he ever be able to turn it on? This is now 2 seasons now, basically. 2 seasons now. He was pretty disappointing at the last World Cup, also for Uruguay. This Copa America, he had his good runs, but in the big moment in the semifinal, does not lets down his country. There's some conversations that we need to have over Darwin Núñez in terms of the player. Absolute brilliant. The quality he has to get into these positions is absolutely sensational, but the finishing touch is not. And at the end of the day, I would prefer a guy like Cody Gakpo that can do the things that Darwin Núñez does, to get into these spaces with the pace that he has, to create all these opportunities for himself, but will take advantage of the few opportunities that he does create. And he does have enough quality in a Cody Gakpo to create just enough opportunities to be effective, to really put his footmark on a game. And yeah, it's just really disappointing, because Darwin Núñez had 2 really good opportunities early in the game that completely changed the game. That will completely change the game, getting it early. They don't take advantage of that. Jefferson Lerma take advantage of a set piece in the 39th minute, which came at the perfect time for Colombia because it came shortly before that red card. To get that goal early before the red card would be much easier for them, rather if they ended up conceding a red card later on, because then Uruguay wouldn't have to open up against them and didn't leave the space open that Colombia had in that second half later on to the game to potentially get that second goal. None of that space would have been there, so it would have been almost impossible for Colombia to get that goal if they were playing with the red card against this really starch Uruguayan defense. Despite missing Araujo, I thought they were pretty strong how they defended today as well. I thought Colombia defensively, the entire back line deserve a round of applause. Cuesta, Davison Sanchez, Mojica. They were absolutely brilliant here. Mina coming on as well was very pivotal in the later stretches of the game. Yeah, hats off to the Colombian defense. They were really strong. Luis Diaz, I thought he was lively again. James Rodriguez, he's been one of the best players in this tournament, which is crazy. He got another brilliant set piece delivery from him with the 6th assist of the tournament. What he's done at this day and age, absolutely brilliant. He has a good shout to be the man of the tournament if he can lead Colombia past Argentina in that final. Absolutely sensational. Cordoba was really good. Lerma with the goal, obviously. Arias, I thought he was actually really good as well. And these are players that had to put in a heavy shift in as well because of playing with 10 men for that second half. But yeah, I thought Colombia, they have this sort of belief with the unbeaten streak. They have the belief. They're playing with the belief. And even though they go down with 10 men, They play with amazing belief, and it's absolutely sensational. Now, the Munoz, I didn't cover this. So he gets a yellow card, okay. You put yourself in the position now, it's second yellow. He gets pinched, I guess. He gets pinched, or he gets he gets his, his part of his body twisted, pinched, whatever you want to say. Okay. It's something that bothers you. Maybe you can yell at a player. Maybe do like a little get him off me, a little shove, nothing crazy. But to full on elbow a player, full strength, when you're already on a yellow, gotta be one of the stupidest things I've ever seen someone do on the pitch while already on the yellow. You could argue that could have been a straight red, let alone a second yellow. And the nerve he had to argue after that, and all the Colombians in the bench, the coach argued. I mean, it is the most clear of second yellows. He can call himself lucky that he didn't even get a straight red. Now, obviously, that doesn't really make much of a difference. He's still going to be suspended for the next game with the second yellow. It don't matter, really. But still, he could find himself unlucky that he didn't get that, a straight red, because that's just, you can't do that. It's just illegal, huh? And it's a very, very selfish moment, and he could have cost his country an opportunity to be in the final. Now, lucky for for Colombia, he didn't, but that was a bad red card from Munoz. And but great win for Colombia, and they have that sort of belief with this ridiculous unbeaten run that they're going on, and they find themselves in a good opportunity now to win a Copa America against Argentina, who haven't had the best of tournaments this summer. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to the Deschamps staying on as the manager of the French national team.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we reacted to Colombia hanging on with 10 men to reach the Copa America final. We'll move on to react to Didier Deschamps staying on as French manager after their Euro 2024 semi-final disappointment. So after the French lost to Spain, there was a little bit of talks amongst Didier Deschamps. A little bit of talk, in this tournament. He's had his moments of, being asked about the style of play, and he basically came out and said to the press, speaking to the French fans, if you don't like the way that they play, change the channel. And you can come out and make those sort of comments when you had the success that Didier Deschamps has had on this French team. You can come out and make those sort of comments. But there has been talk, and the style of play is what it is. We know what he wants to do with France, and it is tolerated when you're winning World Cups. Yes. But when you don't win, there is some questions asked, and they didn't win this European Championship. And now there's some questions that are being asked, but look, in my opinion, he's a brilliant manager. He's everything that Gareth Southgate wants to be. That's literally what Gareth Southgate tries to be in Didier Deschamps, but Didier Deschamps is just a more successful manager in doing it. And keep in mind, Didier Deschamps, the French job is not all he's done. He's had, he's won a League One at Marseille. He did, bring Juventus back up Serie A after the scandal. He did take Monaco to the Champions League final. So he's had a successful managerial career before France. For people wondering, so it's not similar to Gareth Southgate, despite both managers adopting a pragmatic approach. So yes, he will be staying on in his role. He led France to World Cup glory in 2018, and he does have a contract through the end of the 2026 World Cup. And there is the talk of Zidane, with Zidane being available, kind of hovering over the shoulder over Deschamps. But it's kind of clear that, of Deschamps, it's going to be Deschamps' decision when he wants to leave, unless something embarrassing were to happen to France, which I don't see, happening. I do think this is a little bit of a kind of a reboot for France, because in my opinion, over the last few international tournaments, this is the first time that, the French have actually been outclassed in the way that they got outclassed by Spain. I thought they absolutely just lost to the better team than them. I thought in that World Cup final last time around, it was penalties, it was Argentina, it was the Messi effect, it was, the crowd completely Argentinian. It seemed like it was kind of France against the world. The European Championship before that, it was an unlucky sort of losing in penalties to Switzerland after, conceding a 3-1 lead later on. Such an un-Deschamps type of performance. And then the performance before that, they won the World Cup. And then the Euros before that, they reached the final, in which they lost in extra time in a game that they really dominated, in my opinion. So, yeah, Didier Deschamps, Philippe Diallo told French news outlets that Deschamps' job is secure. He said himself, he has a contract that runs until 2026 and has achieved the sporting objective that was set for him. I see no need to call his contract into question. His past results speak for themselves, and the objectives have been reached. Didier will continue his mission. After the game on Tuesday against Spain, in the post-game press conference, Didier Deschamps was asked questions about his future right after defeat, which, yes, emotions are high, but it led to a little bit of an emotional response from Deschamps, who said, "You are terrible." Asked that question to the president of the FFF, the French Football Federation. "I have just came from losing a semi-final, and you think that I have already thought about that? Me, I respect you. You should try to respect the people who have responsibility a little more as well. I say that in total calmness. What has happened, happened. I am here to respond to your questions, but I'm not going to respond to that today. You know very well the situation, and you know what the president thinks, so maybe you didn't have to ask me that questions." Yeah, look, Didier Deschamps has done enough to stay on as French manager despite the semi-final, defeat. He has done enough in his time. He's been really, really good manager for France. The way he has this team, the way that he gets this team defending, the ability to keep it tight and to take advantage of quality that they have in transition. And that quality just didn't come through in transition at this tournament. They defended, again, really, really well at this tournament, but just not enough quality going forward. A lot of these players not really at the levels that they were at previous tournaments. So, and they do need the rise to come from a few attack. Mbappe needs to return it back to his best, and they need, a little bit of a rehaul. I think Griezmann, the likes of Griezmann and Giroud's time with the national team might be Giroud definitely coming to end, but we're looking at Griezmann potentially, his time potentially coming to an end as well. When you look at the fact that he didn't even start in the semi-final, this is now the second game that he hasn't started at this tournament. There needs to be a little bit of a rehaul in that department, and I think they're gonna go on again. They still have a ridiculously talented squad, and I don't think Deschamps was the problem on this French team. I think Mbappe was nowhere near his best, his levels. I think he was a big part of the problem because he didn't play to his level. I thought the French attack was woeful. They were not clinical like they were in past tournaments. They still had a few they created a little bit of opportunities here and there. Camavinga in that Portugal game, Mbappe had an opportunity in that Spain game. So did Theo Hernandez. There was opportunities that they just did not take advantage of at these European Championship, and it was not the free-flowing transition that we've seen in previous French teams. So, and then they just got done by a better team. Spain is a better team than France at this point in age, and France have a chance to, really do a little bit of a rehaul entering the next World Cup, and it will be under Didier Deschamps, despite Zinedine Zidane looking over him on looking over his shoulder, because it's clear that he probably wants to take on that French managerial job. That's probably what he's waiting for, but it doesn't look like that opportunity is going to come soon for him. I think Deschamps is going to want to stay on as French manager for a very long time, and why not? When you have this ridiculous array of talent, why would you want to leave? I think managing the international football is really, really good, in my opinion, especially a job like France. You get paid really, really well. You don't have, it's nowhere near the stress of, club football, because club football, you're dealing with the press every single day. You're dealing with training every day. You're dealing with transfers and all that. It's very, very different being a manager of your home country. That's kind of like the perfect job, in my opinion, and a job that a lot of people will desire. So it doesn't surprise me, his reluctancy to let go of it. He was the captain of the French national team, and he won a World Cup, so the emotional connection is there. Now he's the manager of a team. He won a World Cup as a manager, and despite the sustained success he had, he only has one major international tournament, the Nations League, yes, but besides the Nations League, when it comes to World Cup and European Championships, he only has one major international tournament since the 2014 World Cup that he's won. And he's had two finals that he's lost. He's had two finals that he lost. He had a semi-final that he lost. And so there's been a little bit of heartbreak there as well for Didier Deschamps. So, and that's just football at the end of the day. That is football. And that is football. Now, I think in this 2026 World Cup, I think there will be a little bit of pressure, because the way that they play is not the most appealing. So results are going to be important when you don't play the most appealing. When you play appealing football, it gives you a little bit of an out. It gives you a little bit of a leeway. You don't get that sort of leeway if you don't play that appealing football, in which they don't play. So I think it's important that in 2026 World Cup that they perform really, really well. And to perform really, really well as the manager for French national team, with the talent that they have, with the expectation that they have, you have to win it at the end of the day. And it's interesting to see whether or not he can get that done. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to the top soccer headlines. we move on to the final segment of the day, where we react to the top headlines in the soccer world. Obviously, I talked about it earlier in the show. I'm mentioning it again. Gregg Berhalter, he's out as a manager of the USMNT national team. A great day for American soccer fans, as the journey to the 2026 World Cup takes a major positive turn. Because Gregg Berhalter, he is nowhere near the levels of a manager that could take us over the top. So getting out all the loose ends will be perfect. And hopefully it doesn't end there. There's a lot of people at the top that have price to pay, which they probably won't pay. But if they can get the decision done, a good manager coming in for 2026, I guess all will be forgiven for the failure of a decision to retain Gregg Berhalter post 2022 World Cup. Manchester United have reached an agreement with Lille to sign Leny Yoro for 45 million euros, despite the huge interest that was coming from La Liga champions Real Madrid. Madrid, they have remained, confident of winning the race for this young center half, because the player wants to play for Real Madrid. But despite that, the notion of that, Madrid have not been able to put a bid in for him to Lille. And while Manchester United have already agreed and will have reached an agreement with Lille, United know that the player prefers to play for Madrid, but they want to pressure Lille into getting it done, so so that they could be the player they could get it on. Paris Saint-Germain has also been interested in the 18-year-old, but Madrid and United have been the team that's been more interested, and Madrid are really optimistic that they can get an agreement in, as the player wants them to be with him, as the player wants to play for them. And the defender is actually the defender is a very good player. Don't get me wrong, but it's interesting because he's a French international, right, at the U21 level, but he was not part of Thierry Henry's final squad for the Paris 2024 Olympics, despite the likes of Saliba not being available for this team, who was also Olympic eligible. So maybe that really talks about the level of depth amongst the ranks of U23 center halves for France. But that's also interesting. By the way, Nacho, he has announced, it's been decided that he will join Saudi Arabian club Al Qadsiya since his contract expired, and that also is a need, shows the need for Real Madrid to reinforce their defense. David Alaba, he's also coming from injury, so he's not going to be fully available right away. So besides Rudiger and Eder Militao, who hasn't had the best season as well, they need some defensive reinforcements in there. So I'm interested to see if they're able to get it done. Southgate said Euro 2024 final is my best achievement, guiding them to the final on their first major tournament final on foreign soil is the best achievement of his coaching career. I guess whatever. I don't know how they're in the final. That's maybe it is the best achievement. It's also the luckiest achievement I've ever seen, ever. I still don't know how they're in the final. Darwin Nunez and Uruguay teammates have been seen entering the stands that after the Colombian loss 1-0 in the semifinal. You see about Darwin Nunez and about a dozen Uruguayan teammates that went into the stands, and as the fans brawled at the Bank of America Stadium in North Carolina. it was a very physical and a highly contested match, and there was a big fight that broke out behind the Uruguayan bench after the Cesar Ramos blew his whistle. First, there was a melee in the middle of the pitch right after the game fight amongst the players, but then there was an even bigger melee that broke out behind the Uruguayan bench. Now, this was a crowd that was 90%, maybe even more, in favor of Colombia. It was straight yellow in the crowd, but there was a little bit of Uruguayan fans that were fighting with Colombian supporters, and as normal, beverages and all that being thrown. You see Darwin Nunez and teammates that went up into the crowd and started hitting fans. You saw Nunez, punching fans and fighting fans and all that. The captain of Uruguay, actually, Jose Jimenez, one of the more experienced guys in the squad, said the players were into the crowd because they needed to protect their families. He came out and said, "This is a disaster. Our family is in danger. We had to get into the stands to take out our loved ones with small babies, newborns. Everything was a disaster. There was not a single police officer. Apparently, it took a very long time for police, more than 10 minutes for police to arrive there and to restore the calmness and order. And the public address announcer had to ask all the fans to leave the stadium, despite that several supporters still stayed. About 100 Uruguayan fans and members of the federation remained on the field for their own protection for more than 20 minutes after the game, while Colombians, they continued to make their way out as they celebrated. CONMEBOL did release a statement regarding what happened, saying our work is based on the conviction that soccer connects and unites us through its positive values. There is no place for intolerance and violence on and off the field. We invite everyone in the remaining day to pour all of their passion into cheering on their national teams and having an unforgettable party." Uruguayan coach Marcelo Bielsa, he said he didn't get to see what happened right away, but he did come out with some comments saying, "There was some arguments in the midfield, and when I saw that happening, I went to a locker room. I thought they were thanking the fans for their support, but then I learned there was some problems over there, unfortunately." Didn't really go into details, it's unfortunate scenes there. Alphonso Davies, he had a leg injury in that semifinal of the Copa America, and Jesse Marsh, he actually came out today saying the X-ray is negative, and he came out and said that maybe there's a chance that he might be able to play Saturday. He could be available. Davis had to limp off the field in the 71st minute of that semifinal loss to Argentina after he was caught by Gonzalo Montiel on his right leg. Marsh did come out and say whether he'll be available for Saturday or not, it's too early to say. Canada will play Uruguay on Saturday in Charlotte, North Carolina for a third-place match. Speaking about their performance, for Canada's performance at this Copa America, Jesse Marsh said, "Incredible strides, but there's still a lot to do. We're establishing things at some high levels, but in order to be a real team that can hold up to the biggest moments and biggest matches, there's more work to be done, but certainly we're on a good path. We have big talent and some great goal scorers, and I know we'll continue to develop that. But the fact that we are getting big chances, the fact that we are still in the game, playing the way we want to play, committing to all the things we want, in the end, that's what will lead us to be more effective, more efficient, clearer, to have more game control, all of those things." So big credit after 5 weeks against these opponents for these guys to perform like this. And even though we didn't execute everything perfectly, clearly we're on a good path, clearly. The two finals, by the way. for the European Championship and Copa America will be played this Sunday. They are both confirmed. Spain will take on England. Spain will take on England, which is actually a rematch of the Women's World Cup final in 2023. That just came out the top for some reason. That came in my head for some reason. Spain take on England in the European Cup final, while the Argentinians take on Colombia in the Copa America final. So interesting game finals coming up on Sunday. We'll all be there to watch some of these amazing games. Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Let's go.